You are not free, and you do not have the right to life. Good morning. My name is James Anderson, and I'm the founding member of the Objective Governance Party. And while I've been out of commission for a little while because of an aneurysm in my head and PTSD, it all got to me, but I took myself out of it for a little while. And in my recovery, I recovered by doing what I do best, studying. And the more and more I find out about what has been happening with this pandemic, and I will use that term loosely, the after effects of the platform is scary as hell. We have got untold amount of information in front of us that will tell us the truth. Even though you actually know the truth, you will still need a pile of proof in front of you before you actually do anything about it. How do I know that? Because you've already got all of the truth in front of you about the pandemic, about COVID-19, about the platform inside you, about the cell towers, about the New World Order, about the World Health Organization, about the World Economic Forum, about the United Nations, about Agenda 21, about Agenda 2030. You have all the information. The problem is, all of you people that I'm talking to never pass that information on. Unfortunately, I'm restricted on most of the platforms. I'm restricted because of what I say. Facebook, for argument's sake, I have 2,100 members, friends. But my videos only go to about 35 people on my friends list. So it's easy to restrict me. What I need is that 35 that get my videos for them to send it to somebody else, and them to send it to somebody else, and again and again and again, until I get all that 2,000 come back to me because they can see I'm still here. And this is how you get restricted by our media platforms. If you have something to say, they will restrict the amount of people that are listening. So, for everyone who gets this, I want you to pass it on. And for everybody who gets it after that, I would appreciate if you would pass it on. Because we're getting nowhere, and the clock is ticking down. So, I have an issue with this platform for a start. Because the platform doesn't appear to do anything. On the news channels and on the internet and all the rest of it, we've got new variants of COVID on the way. This one more deadlier than the last. Of course it is. Of course it is. But it's probably not. Because we were mugged with a flu before, which is what COVID-19 was. It was a flu, rebranded. It wasn't any more deadlier to healthy people than any other flu. You know we were conned, and I know we were conned. And that's the point here. Right from the beginning, we were conned. We were conned by people like Chris Whitty. We were conned by our Prime Minister. We were conned by our politicians, and they all understood that COVID-19 was nothing more than a nasty flu. How do I know that? Because on the government's own website, they downgraded COVID-19 3 days after the Emergency Powers Act. You can check that for yourself. But if you go and check that information, what will you do with that information? Because here's the other problem I have. There are lots of people on Facebook, on X, on Instagram, who actually have a vast amount of intelligence on this whole subject. but they can't seem to get it around the place so everybody sees it. They have the same issue I have. Because we're all using platforms that can be easily controlled. The only platform they cannot control is you, a little memory stick, and a printer. We have to devolve how we pass information around now, because we are getting caught in the same loop. We're passing information to each other, pointless, because we all know the information. This is one of the easiest ways to curtail a resistance. Restrict the way they can pass their information around. Poof. Done. Job done. Right. So, I'm asking you to get Neanderthal about this. Because once you've gone past everything that you've got, that's what's left. Get medieval. Get Neanderthal about it. Start carving the bloody walls if you have to. But this is about symbolism. What you have to do is put your symbol out there. Not in here, not in the internet. Because you're already here. You've been here for years. How far have you got? Fucking nowhere. Ditto. So I'm not bringing anybody down here. What I'm doing is I'm pointing out to you that I have got absolutely fucking nowhere. Because I started writing about this in 2016. And it wasn't long after that they started to seriously ban me from all forms of platforms. Because they understood that what I was saying is a bit difficult to throw back in your face if I'm showing you the evidence that goes with it. So, what we need is for all of us to take a step back and understand the internet is not our friend. We can use it for general communication, but you will never get to the masses of the public on the internet because the masses of the public don't use the internet. They just flick through it. They go onto a website, 2 or 3 minutes. They'll go onto another one. They'll see links. They'll do this. They'll do that. But they are too frightened to look for ways out of the situation that we're in. They're too frightened to read some of this stuff. So they just flick it. They just screen roll it. It's gone. That's how they deal with these things. Now, what we have to do is when you find something that you like, copy it. Copy it and put it on paper. And put a link to it. Whether it's poetry, whether it's somebody's rambling, whether it's a bulletin notice that somebody's put up that you like or whatever. Put it in writing. Print it yourself off of a printer. Yes, printers are not dear in this day and age. The bloody ink for it is. But a couple of reams of paper. You don't have to hand these out to people. Just leave them on cafe tables underneath the ashtrays. Let people pick them up. Go into the cafe and say, look, do you mind if I leave these behind? And let the cafe owner have a look at it. And if he likes it, he'll let you. It's about you now creating the resistance that is needed to what is going on. Because the general population are too frightened to ask questions and too frightened to look on the internet. But what they're not frightened of is sitting there at a cafe table, seeing a note under there. They do it for bars and they do it for clubs and all the rest of it. But they don't mind picking up that note and giving it a quick scan. And your job is to plant seeds in these people's minds so then they will go on the internet and they will find information and they will understand. Our politicians and everybody behind them are what we need to deal with, because it's those people who allow it. Why have we got mass migration? Because politicians allowed it. Everybody understood the consequences all the way back to Enoch Powell. Everybody understood the consequences of what would happen with mass migration, uncontrolled mass migration. But they allowed it to happen anyway. Do not ever let yourself be convinced that all of this is random. That what is happening now is just, a random set of circumstances that suddenly happened, and we've got 7 million foreigners in our country who don't actually belong here. And that's got nothing to do with their race, creed or colour or religion. The fact is, they're bloody illegals. And I've got an issue with the illegals. Why? Because you shouldn't be here. You shouldn't be allowed to use the Human Rights Act to abuse our justice system. You shouldn't be allowed to live in a hotel. You should be in an internment camp. If it was up to me, and let's be absolutely honest about this, if it was up to me, I would go to whoever built these bloody prison ships that we've got. I would buy 5 of the bastards, and I would plonk them down the channel. And I would put a fence between the lot, just a low water ballads, nothing serious. But if one of them boats crossed over that fence, those individuals wouldn't be landing in Dover. Their ass would be landing in a prison ship. And that's where they'd stay. And if it got overcrowded, tough. I'd build another one, and another one, and another one, and another one if I have to. But I guarantee in 6 months, there wouldn't be anybody crossing the channel. I guarantee it. In fact, it'd probably be a lot bloody sooner. But you get the point. We have the mechanisms to do this. We have the Emergency Powers Act. Look how quickly your government put you in lockdown. And don't you ever tell me they can't put these people into internment camps. They put us in an internment camp. They interned a lot of us. So don't ever tell me they can't intern these people, okay? We can. It's the politicians that are doing all this. Not them. They're just taking advantage of what the politicians give them. And most of our people are too frightened of our politicians to actually stand up and say, "Oi, what the fuck?" Because that's what needs to be done. All of our people need to be able to stand in front of a politician and say, "No, this is not your job." We need us, the people. We need to be able to govern our politicians. We need a House of Representatives made up of the people. 510, 520 people made up from the electoral register of sound mind, who can sit and who can govern our politicians' actions and policies before they hit the public. They can do the job that the Crown and the House of Lords keep failing to do. All of these laws and all of these sly acts and all the legislation and all the rest of it they stuff down our throat constantly. It's not necessary. People are good people if we're left alone. We need to be able to govern our politicians. So as if they come up with stupidity like the emergency powers on Monday, and then because of COVID-19, and then reducing COVID-19 to nothing more than a nasty flu. 3 days later, and still being allowed the Emergency Powers Act. If we'd had a House of Representatives, we could have turned around and said, "Hold on, right, we understand this is an emergency. Now, we want you to put the facts in front of us, not the models, not the scientists, not the politicians, not the vaccine makers. We want you to put the facts of what is actually happening in front of us so we can govern if you have the right to use the Emergency Powers Act. And at any given time during this pandemic, a House of Representatives could have pulled the plug on what they were doing. What do you mean? You want people to walk 6 foot apart? You want people to stand 6 foot apart in a queue? But it doesn't matter if they're on a corner. What do you mean you want people to wear masks when viruses can get through that size of mask? What do you mean you want to hyperventilate people? What do you mean you want to end of life care? What do you mean you want the right not to resuscitate the disabled and the mentally ill? What do you mean you want the right to use people's children to spy on them? This is why we need a House of Representatives, so the people can represent ourselves, because it's no good having political representation, because they're not doing us any favours, and they are seriously killing us, stealing from us. But the one thing that they steal from us the most is the ability to live. We're just surviving. Most people have got no ambitions left, because you can't afford to have an ambition in this day and age, because you can't afford it. Because the politicians have already figured out you cannot fulfill the aspirations of 60 odd million people. You just can't do it. But it'll keep blagging you and making you frightened, yada, yada, yada. We need a House of Representatives. We need to be represented in Parliament, because we're not. But we can represent ourselves. So Parliament has to come to the people to ask, can I do this? Can I do that? Can I do the next thing? Because can I do this and can I do that under the presumption of consent has allowed your politicians to experiment on you, and you have no idea what that experiment is doing. And that one piece of truth should frighten you enough to start talking to people and just ask them, you any idea what this platform's doing inside us? Put this seed inside their head. It'll grow. The way you communicate is important. Put a seed in there. Don't scream at them. You any idea what's happening with this platform that's inside everybody? Let them worry about it. Let them think. And then they may react. But we don't have much time. Have a nice afternoon.